Okay, the time is now 6:30. I'm going to call this session of the Ridgefield City Council to order. Would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mayor Pro Tem Chipman, would you lead us?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Miss Julie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis.
Present.
Councilmember Favela. Here. Councilmember Wells.
Here.
Councilmember Burkle.
Present.
Councilmember Hamilton. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Chipman.
Here.
Mayor Cole.
Present. All right. Mr. Stewart, any late changes to the agenda tonight?
No late changes, Mayor.
All right. We will move on to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council regarding items not subject to a specific public hearing may come forward at this time to the podium and use the raise hand feature located on the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For controls over the phone, press *9 for raise your hand and press *6 to mute or unmute. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody in the room wishing to give public comment tonight? Come on up.
Hey, do I have to put, okay, it's on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Carmen DeLeon, and I live over there in Vancouver, and I'm here because I just had the idea that maybe you guys want tourism, because I just think that if they put away 5,000 acres to be untouched and preserve the beauty of this region, then we should take advantage of that, and instead of destroying it, you know, make money off of it. So they're selling views at the Space Needle for $30 a head. You get to go up to the Space Needle, you look around. Well, we got a situation where they got $2 billion to burn. So I thought, hey, we got a better way to spend that money. And I looked into it because it's only a cheap, measly $500 million. But they already did it at OHSU. So the way it works at OHSU is all the people park at the bottom, they take the tram to the top, they work at OHSU, and for the whole year it's $400. Less, like $1.50 a day for the local people working. For anybody else, it's like $10 a head, go up and down. But I'm saying we got a way better view, and it dead ends, and what they're talking about is a light rail. I don't know how much time I have. At dead ends at the light rail, all you gotta do is put in a tram, and you come over the Columbia River, not touching the fish, and offering something unseen any place, I don't think even in the country of the world, that you could take the tram, just stop anywhere there in Vancouver and come right on up to Ridgefield, find a beautiful location to build a giant tree where the tram could come, turn around in the canopy and go back. And what they do at the Space Needle is the floor is empty. You can see the bottom. And if you could do that over the Columbia River and float over the bottom, that would be so cool. And to imagine the scenery of a bird's eye view from over there at the from Expo Center to stop in screwed up Vancouver and then come up here to Ridgefield, you can see the horizon of Mount St. Helens, the sun coming up over Mount Hood. I can't imagine how beautiful it would be. And then in the evening to see the sunset from a bird's eye view coming down the other side. I'm just saying it's a better deal than they give you at the Space Needle. I don't know if I'm out of time, but I'm just saying, and in order to keep it running all year, bring the money in, is you get the community, it's a field trip. It's talk about an educational experience, you know? So you have this giant, the canopy of the tree is where the tram would roll around, and you can get up to the tree by climbing it like a kid, and yeah, that's a fee. And you know, you can come play in our tree for a fee, and we could even make it so that it encourages bees and trees and birds. Oh.
Okay. Thanks, Ms. DeLeon. Good to see you.
Can I come back afterwards and finish
I think it's only 3 minutes. Yeah.
for the public hearing after?
I don't know if we have a public hearing. Is there anybody else wishing to give public comment tonight?
It's 'cause it
Miss
says-
Julie, anybody online?
Not seeing anyone online, Mayor.
Okay, we will close public comment for the evening. Moving on to the consent agenda, I would accept a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Council, any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion passes. We'll move on. We have a presentation this evening. This is the fourth quarter 2024 budget to actual presentation. Mr. Johnson, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council and concerned citizens. So if we go to slide 2, just a reminder of our policy reserves. For the general fund, we have just under 4.2 million compared to 2023 of 3.3. Overall, in our operating funds, we have 7.3 million, which is about a 22% increase from 2023. So let's jump over to the general fund revenue, which is slide 3. So we slightly exceeded the budget for 2024 at 101.7%. The big change was retail sales tax with our additional businesses that are coming in at just about 110% of budget. The only area that we were less than was the intergovernmental grants and other, and that's because of grant funding that with the projects were still in play, and we had not been able to draw on the grant completely. So we saw a pretty good year, again, very close to what budget was and slightly over. It was a 10.5% increase from 2023. So as we jump over to the general fund expense, we're 83% of budget, which was a 19% increase from 2023. The areas that we did see some increases were judicial and legal. Judicial because we did have quite a bit more activity at the battleground courts, and legal, some additional work for city attorney and some attorneys that we did have to hire for a couple of different specific projects. Cemetery also had a pretty significant increase. That just reflects that there was more maintenance done during the year than what we had initially expected. So that's the main part with the general fund. So let's jump to general fund balance. And our fund balance at the end of 2024 was 6.7 million. Compared to 8.4 million, a 19.5% decrease from 2023. That was an expected decrease in fund balance because of capital projects. We had put money aside planning for the growth of the city and using some funding from general fund to work on those capital projects. After reserves, our available fund balance for use going into 2025 was about 2.5 million. That's compared to about 5 million in 2023, again, for the same reasons. So any questions at all on the general fund?
Council, any questions on the general fund portion?
Okay.
No, sir.
So the next 2 slides are just showing the activity in comparison since 2021 on the general fund balance, and then our ending fund balance, revenues and expenses, just kind of a graphical depiction. And then also from 2018, the graphical depiction of our fund balance and policy reserves to just kind of gauge. Our policy reserves, which are the red bars, this is, okay, she's got the slide up there. As you can see, that has continued to grow over time. The reason for that is our policy reserves are based on our revenues from the prior year, plus our operating and maintenance expenses as well. So we will continue to see our policy reserves increase for that reason. So let's jump to the street fund on the next slide. And our revenues were 94.6% of budget, just slightly less on the vehicle motor fuel tax, mainly because we're getting a much more efficient vehicles on the road, so we're seeing a lot less use of the fuel tax. And then also we had one grant that was expected to be used that was not, the project didn't get started and really started here in 2025. For our expense, we are about 91.9% of budget, so we did have a surplus at the end of the year. We don't keep a large fund balance in the street fund because the majority of the expenses are paid out of the general fund, property taxes and sales tax. So we had a small ending fund balance of about $80,000. So to our Community Development Building and Permitting Fund, this is a restricted fund that is used just for permitting activities. Our revenue overall was 119.4% of budget, so that's a good sign. As you know, we went through a pretty long project on a cost, a fee study and what our cost recovery would be. So we did see an increase in permitting revenue, which helps out quite a bit. And then with all the work that our Community Development Director and staff did, we were able to cut expenses to 87.4% to help reduce and work on balancing out that budget as well. So our ending fund balance was about $777,000, a decrease from $1.8 million the prior year. Now that we do have the cost of service study completed, we have made some changes there, and we do expect to start seeing that, not using the fund balance quite as much, and then getting that to the point where it's going to balance out year to year, and also build up our reserves again in that fund. So on to our special revenue and debt service funds. I'm really going to only hit on the affordable housing for this fund. The drug fund is a small fund. Affordable housing, this is one that council's considering how to use the funding, and we'll be working with you to finish out the ideas that they have presented to staff to work on. At the end of 2024, we had just under $115,000 available for use for affordable housing. The only thing I'll mention about debt service, it brings in the debt that we issued for the Pioneer project that we did, plus pays all of our debt service for our different general governmental debt that we have issued in the past. So on to our capital funds, REIT and TBD. REIT is real estate excise tax. Our revenues were 120.9%, so we did see an increase two ways. We saw an increase in the expected houses that sold out in Ridgefield, but also we saw an increase in the price per house that was selling, and that brought in a little bit of extra revenue there. Our expense was about 87.1%, and that just reflects the fact that there was a capital project that was going to be paid out of real estate excise tax, and we didn't have to use the real estate excise tax fund to pay for that. We were able to pay for that out of other sources. Our transportation benefit district, this is for our pavement preservation plan. We saw an increase in revenue of 126% of budget. The reason for that is our sales tax did increase in 2024. You saw that in the general fund. And that also, we have a sales tax that funds the pavement preservation program. That increased as a result of the new businesses that have come in. Our expense was 64.4% of budget. The main reason for that is we did see some of our projects come in lower than what we expected them to be, and a few that we weren't able to complete due to some permitting requirements at the federal level and some grants that we're still working on getting where there was match coming from this fund. So we do expect that that will be spent in 2025. Fund balance for the Transportation Benefit District ending was about $727,000. And I'll go back, I didn't mention the fund balance for real estate excise tax. That ended at just under $4.4 million. So our other two capital funds, the impact fee funds, park impact fees and traffic impact fees. As you're well aware, we haven't been getting a lot of revenue in there because we do have a lot of credits out where we have the developers building a lot of the infrastructure and giving them credits for overbuilding what they're required to do. So we're still getting a lot of the projects completed and at a lower cost just by issuing the credits. Our revenue did still come in right at budget at 100.1%. Our expense was at 40.6% in the park impact fee fund. Again, that's because the projects were scheduled, didn't complete in 2024, and they have been carried over to 2025. That includes Boyce Park and then also the purchase of Greeley Farms parkland. Traffic impact fee was 128% of budget. So we did see a little bit more revenue than we expected there. That was mainly on a couple of commercial projects. And then our expense was 94% of budget. We did draw that particular fund down to $5 at the end of the year. Again, we will start to build that up. We have nothing planned at this point to spend out of that fund, so we'll start to see some increases, however, small increases because of all the credits. As far as the park impact fee fund, the fund balance was about $1.25 million at the end of the year.
Quick question on that. Where do credits show up on the balance sheet then? Do they show up as an expense, or they just kind of get set aside?
The credits show up as a liability.
Okay.
And then what it is, and this is getting into an accounting terminology, is it's deferred revenue.
Okay.
So as soon as they use those credits, then we get to count that as revenue, that's been used. We issue it, becomes a liability, then it becomes revenue once they use it, and that's how it works off of the balance sheet.
Gotcha.
They do, for all the credits that we do issue, they have 10 years to use them. If they don't use them in the 10 years, then they do expire.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
So our next slide is on our capital projects. General capital, our revenue was about 80% of budget, and our expense was about 47%. Reason for that is the majority, there's a few grants we didn't get full value for in 2024. They did carry over to 2025. As far as the expense, we didn't get quite as much done as what I initially put into the budget for the Pioneer widening. That doesn't mean it wasn't on track, because it was. We just budgeted for the entire project to make sure if they went faster, we had that funding available. So fund balance at the end of the year in that particular fund was $17.5 million. The majority of that is some developer funding that came as pro rata shares for doing the 35th project, and then also some at a couple different intersections that were impacted by development. And then also the majority of that's coming from remaining bond funds for the Pioneer project and other projects at the junction in that tax increment area.
And that revenue right there, that's reflective of TIA money, is correct?
No, not TIA money, that's the bond issuance.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, the bond issuance.
Yeah, the TIA money doesn't reflect until 2025, so
Right.
you won't see it in this presentation.
Okay.
So equipment replacement fund, this is our fund to replace our vehicles and our heavy equipment so that we put money aside to make sure that we're able to keep our fleet up to date. And our revenue was 100%. That's from each operating fund that uses the equipment. And then our expense was about 50%. That's because we had 4 vehicles, 2 of which were coming from the equipment replacement for patrol cars. We ordered these things roughly 2.5 years ago. We didn't get them until 2025. So we've carried that budget forward multiple years now. They are getting outfitted now, so we should have those relatively soon. Our ending fund balance was about $773,000 for that particular fund. So on to our operating funds for water and stormwater. Our revenue for water was 95.5% of budget and expense 92.4%, so pretty much right on what we were expecting. Our ending fund balance in water was $3.6 million, which was a 14.8% increase from the year before. And then our reserves are about $1.6 million in that particular fund as well. Stormwater fund was 93% of budget, and our expense was 83%. So they were able to manage their expense really well in that particular fund. It still was an 8.8% increase over the prior year for expenses. The ending fund balance was $795,000, which we have seen this fund start to increase a little bit, which is important because we do have a lot of requirements with that new permit that we're subject to in 2024, as well as all the user fees that are paid for stormwater also covers all capital costs in that particular fund as well. So finally, our last capital funds, water SDC, that's our system development charges. That was at 86.8% of budget, partly because of the development being down a little bit. We have very little credits that are issued in this particular fund, so that doesn't impact quite as much as the park and traffic Our expense was 30% of budget. That reflects mainly that we weren't able to get as far on the Kennedy Well project in the Eastside Reservoir as we had projected, mainly because of some permit issues related to both of those. Our ending fund balance was about $7.5 million in this particular fund. And then our water and stormwater utility capital projects, basically these two are just set up for cash in, cash out to track our expenses on the capital projects. Both of these came in right at the same amounts for both of those. Again, we weren't able to get quite as much done on those projects, mainly because of permitting issues and also some loan and grant agreement related issues, as well as not getting those from the state quite as quickly as we had hoped. So neither of those really carry a fund balance because, again, it's just in there to track the capital expenses. So finally, our cash and city investments at the end of the year, we had a total investment portfolio of about $45 million. Cash on hand was about $1.9 million, and bonds, municipal, were $735,000. U.S. agency bonds, about $9.2 million. And then our investment pools through Clark County, $1.8 million, and Washington State, $33.4 million, which included the majority of that bond issuance for the Pioneer project. Our current yield on investment was 3.02. Our goal's 2%, so we did really well on our earnings there. The main part of the investments is really to protect the principal rather than to earn a real high rate, because we don't want to be risky on that. We did pretty well. Our weighted average maturity was 12.41 months. We shoot for between 24 and 36 months, but we needed to hold back on investing in some longer term because we do have a lot of projects going on. We want to make sure that we're tracking our maturities to how we use the money. So with that, that's the presentation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for Mr. Johnson? Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have a question, but when we were at the state conference last year, the state auditor spoke, and she said, you know, if you haven't had any audit issues, be sure and go back and thank your financial team. And I don't know if we did that or not, but we certainly owe you a huge thank you for the work that you do. And I see you have a couple of your staff here tonight, which is a great time to be able to thank them too. So yeah, huge thanks to you.
Yeah, they do a great job, and if it wasn't for all the work that they do, I don't think we would have the audit results that we do.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Johnson, Council? All right.
All right,
Well,
thank you.
you're off the hook. We'll move on. Our first item of business tonight is the approval of a water conservation strategy. And Mr. Thamer, go to you.
I thought we were passing that.
No, we're still going to do the presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Get started on the second slide. Water conservation strategy. It's a managed approach to manage water demand, system outages, emergencies, and peak seasonal demand. The plan consists of 5 distinct stages that are designed to encourage water conservation as the demand on the water system increases. Before we get into the details of the plan, I would like to discuss the water system and a brief overview of it, some of our present needs, and peak demand and why it matters. And then we'll get into the water conservation strategy plan overview. Next slide. Ridgefield's water system consists of 6 wells, 5 at Abrams Park and 1 at the junction. The system is also intertied with Clark Public Utilities for redundancy during high demand periods. And our water storage and pressure comes from 3 water reservoirs. We have 2 ground level reservoirs and 1 standpipe. The high school reservoir, or the standpipe, is the main reservoir that provides pressure to the entire system. Next slide. Our Present needs. So over the last 15 years, Ridgefield has experienced rapid growth and has invested heavily in our water system infrastructure. Some of the projects, the main projects we've completed since 2010 are our Well 10 at Abrams Park, our Junction Well, our Junction 1 million gallon reservoir, the Cemetery Booster Station, the Junction Booster Station upgrades, and another well, Well 11 at Abrams Park. And some of our projects that we have currently underway in different levels of progress. Our Eastside Reservoir project is almost done with design, and hopefully we can go to construction by the end of the year. Our Kennedy Well, we've completed the test well and are working on water rights. And the third project, our Royal Road intertie with Clark Public Utilities. We have an agreement with Clark Public Utilities for an additional 1,000 gallons per minute. We will need to build the pipeline to them. They'll meet us and we can build the intertie or connect to the intertie. That project we haven't started design for, but it is going to be coming up soon. This next slide, it's a graph showing our monthly water production from 2014 to 2022. And I just want to highlight, as you can probably see, how much more water we are producing now than we were 10, 15 years ago. And I also want to draw your attention, what's really going to be critical as I get into the strategy is the difference between, if you look at the very far right, December of 2022, and then compare that to earlier that year, August of 2022. And you'll see about 3.5 times more production in the summer than in the winter. Likely due to irrigation and our longer, hotter, dry summers. Next slide. Okay. So now we're going to talk about peak water demand. Water demand is affected by many factors. Seasonal impacts, hot and dry summers equals much more irrigation. Maintenance and repairs of key components. Occasionally we have to take key infrastructure offline in order to complete repairs. Firefighting activities. Last summer, as an example, we had a house fire that happened in the early morning hours, and the fire department, over the course of about an hour, maybe 2 hours, put about 40,000 gallons of water on that fire to put it out. And then over the course of the rest of the day, they used another 20,000 gallons to keep the fire from reigniting. So in addition to all of the 3 million gallons a day that we're producing for normal use, we also had to provide 60,000 gallons to that fire. Another factor for peak demand are emergencies, water main breaks, and equipment failure. Sometimes when a water main breaks, we'll have a tremendous amount of water will be lost. Could be 10, 20,000 gallons before we're able to shut everything down, respond to the incident and get it repaired. Despite recent investments, water demand has the potential of exceeding our system capacity if multiple demand factors were to happen at the same time. But there is some good news. Water conservation measures have shown to be effective at reducing demand. In early 2023, Council passed water rate structure water conservation measures, and those measures have proven since then to reduce our water demand on peak days by 5%, which is about 167,000 gallons in 2022, or since 2022. So I'll draw your attention to the graph on the right, and you can see it's been stepping down each year, which with the growth we've had over that time, it should be going the other direction. So water conservation is working. Previous conservation efforts have targeted seasonal water demand, and this plan will target our daily demand for peak days during the summer. Next slide. Why is peak demand so important? It's all about pressure. Water pressure is how Ridgefield delivers usable water to your home and businesses. Like I said earlier, it all comes from the high school reservoir, and the key for us is keeping water in the high school reservoir. So for every about 2.3 feet of elevation, you get 1 pound of pressure. So again, the name of the game for us is keeping at least 70 feet of water in the high school reservoir. When water users all use water at the same time, peak demand, pressure drops, and it's similar to your home when, if you're trying to take a shower and you're running your irrigation and you're trying to wash clothes and wash your dishes, you do that all at the same time, hardly any water is going to come out of the faucet. So what do? You've got to cut back that demand. So that's basically what we're proposing with this conservation strategy, is we want to cut down on that demand. So now we're going to start talking about the plan. First, I want to start with communication. Communication is key. Each stage's customer responsibilities will clearly be communicated, and education and outreach will be the primary focus, with enforcement being a last resort. And I want to highlight that out of the 5 stages, the first 4 stages are only outreach and education. There is no enforcement component. The enforcement component will come in the 5th, or what I've been calling the emergency stage. And it's really a worst case scenario situation. So that's where the enforcement would come in. Some of the types of communication that we're going to use, our website will have information about each level or each stage and some ways that people can conserve water. We will use phone calls and emails to reach out to customers as we move through the stages. And then we'll also use social media to encourage water conservation and what level of this of the strategy that we're in. And we'll also use utility billing inserts. That's actually something that we currently do as part of our conservation measures that you passed earlier a few years ago. And that is, in the beginning of the year, we've already sent out one that was encouraging people to take a look at their sprinkler systems, make sure that there's no leaks, that everything's working properly. And lastly, we're going to install water conservation stage signs that we'll be able to adjust to indicate which level of the strategy we're in. You may remember we had a similar sign a few years ago that told us about water demand. This one will be more specific to our conservation strategy. Okay, so now we're into the actual stages of the plan. So stage 1 is an advisory stage. It's going to be triggered automatically June 1st through September 30th. And we picked those dates due to historical water demand, when we see the water start to drastically climb and then when it starts to reduce for the year. There are no direct customer actions. It's all for the city to just send out information, let people know about the plan, what the stages are going to be, and to be ready for more information. And so now moving on to stage 2. Stage 2 is triggered when the water system reaches 2.5 million gallons per day demand. So our customer actions are going to be to consider limiting water to 3 days per week. And for the city, we're going to create a plan to reduce watering and delay hydrant flushing and street cleaning activities, and limit public works water use for construction and other projects. In stage 3, that will be triggered by 2.7 million gallons per day. Water will be, we'll ask customers to only water 3 days per week, no filling of pools or outdoor water features, but we will be okay with anything that uses a recirculating pump that's not using new water all the time. And for city actions, we'll cut down water to 2 days per week and 3 days per week for drip irrigation. No fleet washing, pause hydrant meter permits unless necessary for public health and safety. I did want to highlight for that a lot of our contractors use water for cutting down on dust. We will still allow that because that has a health and safety component to it. Stage 4 will be triggered when the water system reaches 3 million gallons per day. We'll ask customers to cut back to 1 day per week watering, and no watering for the city, no watering lawns, and 2 days per week for drip irrigation. And lastly, stage 5, this will be triggered by multiple sources offline, the main reservoir offline, or a water main break. We'll ask customers to, we will require that customers prohibit all non-drip irrigation, drip irrigation only 1 day per week, fixed residential leaks within 24 hours of being notified by the utilities department. And for city actions, we will not do any lawn watering and 1 day per week for drip irrigation, and we will issue fines for non-compliant customers. So for this last slide, what we wanted to do is give you an idea of what this might look like. Since we don't have 2025 numbers, we used 2024's production numbers, and then we overlaid the gray and the orange lines. The orange line is going to be stage 3 of this plan, and the gray line is stage 4. As you can see, we did get up into stage 3 and 4 for 24. For the entire year, we were in stage 3 for 28 days, and for stage 4, we would have been 10 days. I do want to point out, though, that this is without the strategy in place, and we would expect to see lower production numbers or demand with the strategy in place and working. That would be the goal anyway. And lastly, stage 5, we did not enter at all, even without the plan in place. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'll take any questions.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Thamer. Council, we'll go to questions and or comments, and we'll start with you, Councilor Burkle.
Just a question on stage 4, 1 day per week watering. Will that be done by address, by name, or how will that be controlled so that everybody isn't watering that particular day?
Yeah, in the plan, what we call for is by house number. Odd numbers for house numbers or business addresses would be like Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then evens would be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Thank you.
And that could all be spelled out in our communications.
Thank you.
Great. Councilor Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. You said for the signage, is it just going to be the one that's located at the junction?
Yeah, our plan is to actually have 2.
Okay.
But they would both be at the junction. So one heading east and then one heading west.
Okay, and then just for my clarification, what are peak hours that we should be aware of that are causing a lot of water usage?
So peak hours are from about 4:30 a.m. till about 10:30, 11. So with peak hours, we have a lot of demand during that time, but it's really about the plan is designed to cut that number in half. So it's not necessarily that we want people using water other times, because we use those off-peak hours to fill our reservoirs. So by not having a big demand, the surplus, we can put water back into the reservoirs.
Thank you.
Great. Going over to you, Councilor Favela.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, am I on? Yes. First, I want to congratulate you on your first presentation.
Thank you.
did great. I have two items. One, are we going to be communicating with HOAs about this plan? Because I know people will be concerned if the city is telling them you cannot water your lawn, but then the HOA is saying if you're not green, you're going to get cited for that. So do we have a plan in place?
Yes, I have spoken with our code enforcement officer who does a lot of our outreach to HOAs, and our plan would be to reach out directly to the officers of each HOA and communicate the plan ahead of time as early as we can, and then work with them, let them know that this is all coming, so hopefully they can make appropriate actions with their own CCNRs. And
My second is, eventually one day we're going to have a working splash pad. What does that look like with the water usage, just for public information? So if we're saying we're on no water, don't use it, but the splash pad is going, can you explain what the difference there would be?
yes, in the plan, we allow for anything that has a recirculation pump to continue to operate. I guess the only nuance to that would be if the splash pad was needing to be refilled, we would not be able to refill it during stage 3 and above, because we are not allowing pools to be filled, and at that point it would be similar to a pool.
Councilor Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I have, I guess, a couple of questions as well. Is there, there's going to be a split between residential, commercial, and municipal use. Is that split roughly the same when you look at like December compared to August? Or if you look at, between those two time periods when it's not peak and then peak, all of a sudden one of those sectors kind of uses way more?
Like for irrigation, you mean?
Yeah, or
so-
just general use, I would say.
Yeah, I think in general, actually, we see sort of proportional increases
Okay.
across all the different user types due to irrigation, because there's so much landscaping around parking lots and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious because like obviously if us or the school district, whoever was, during those peak times, maybe we need to do a little bit more or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So I appreciate you clarifying.
Yeah.
I was also curious just the background on where the thresholds came from. Are those like industry sort of metrics, best practices for the 2.5 million, 2.75, and the 3, or how were those established?
We had our water consultant engineers, Gray and Osborne, take a look at all of our data. Our water crew sent in a lot of data, and all of our, we have a SCADA computer that tracks all sorts of data points, and we sent them all that. They analyzed it and figured out where those points where we need to start bringing water down, where it made the most sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions, council?
Yeah, I've got a question, Ryan.
Yeah.
Is there any incentive given to the commercial users in that for, I'm gonna say, plantings that use no water in their landscape that way? To incentivize to them to turn around or use, I'm gonna say, no grass? If you don't put grass in, you don't have grass to water. Maybe you need to consider that.
Okay. We can look into that, and I can get back to you on that.
And Counselor, just as a reminder, we did look at that when we were looking at different incentivizations for water conservation about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, when you talked about that, when you actually implemented the rate structure, the tiered rate structure that we now have in place. There was conversation about other potential incentives. Xeriscaping was one of those, of incentivizing xeriscaping. It was not one of the methodologies that county asked to move forward with at the time, but it is absolutely something that we can bring back. And while doing that, we can simply bring you back, here are the things that you looked at before that weren't actually adopted that you might want to take a look at again. And we can certainly bring those to you.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I'm curious, we talked about, the action plan, we talked about incentives. Is there any level of exception built in? Because I know there's certain businesses and organizations who have essential water needs, like landscape requirements, or, even residents who may have essential needs for water as well. Is there exceptions built in at any stage?
Not currently. We could look into that, but I do want to remind everyone that, stages 1 through 4 are really, we're just asking people to do that, so we won't be enforcing. And stage 5, like I had said, is definitely emergency, so we would not want to allow any exceptions at that point. I would also say that stage 5 will be very short duration, because it is just those emergencies. Once we get everything working as it's supposed to, we'll drop back down to a lower stage.
Right. My understanding is stage 5 would be a maximum of 30 days. Or is it, well, because because the city manager would have to declare emergency, right? So would it go into emergency for, what is the maximum amount of time you can do that before the
You can have an emergency order for a long period of time. If, as a reminder, the emergency order for COVID lasted quite a while, right? There is a time frame within which, if the city manager declares an emergency, it has to come back to the city council for ratification. But the emergencies that we're talking about, these are single point in time type of emergencies, like the reservoir, has a leak, burst, or a line burst.
All right,
it's those kinds of emergencies. It's not an extended emergency that we're speaking to in stage 5 here.
Right. And just out of curiosity, in recent memory, has there ever been a stage 5 in Ridgefield?
No. And we hope to keep it that way.
Yes. Okay. Councilor Davis.
Yeah, I just had one more question. Thank you. Given that this is a new policy, what checkpoint would be most appropriate to revisit and say, did this plan hit the mark, or what adjustments do we need to make to fine tune? What do you think is appropriate for that?
I would say at the end of the season, probably after stage 1 goes out at the end of September,
Okay.
we would have our peak day for
Okay.
the year, so we could evaluate just like I actually did on that last slide. We could do that with that year's data, and then determine whether our points are in, our stages, our triggers are in the right place, and everything else.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Burkle.
Just one last unusual question. What is the most often cause of a water main break? Or is there?
That's sort of hard to answer, but
Okay.
there is, I would say, a crack in the pipe. There's 2 main times that we have main breaks. Those are when it's really cold, because the ground is freezing, expanding, shifting, which then causes pipes to break. And then when it's really hot, same thing, we have so much clay here that as the soil contracts in the summer, the ground shifts, and then we have pipes break.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from council on this? Are we ready, or is this something we want to take action on tonight, council, or is this something that we want to defer for maybe a couple of weeks as we continue to look through it? Yeah. Defer? Okay, yeah, we'll do that, okay. It looks like we won't take action on this tonight. We'll continue to review it, and then we can look again at it next week.
Okay.
Oh, in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, on to our second item of business tonight. This is the second reading of ordinance number 1451, the Marks petition to annex. Ms. Les, we'll go over to you.
Thank
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council and members of the public. The item before you this evening is a second reading and an opportunity to take action on the Marks petition to annex. This came before council twice to date, first for the intent to annex phase, and then previously for the public hearing on the petition to annex phase. So as a reminder, the property is located on the east side of the city. It is directly south of Phase 3 of Greeley Farms and directly east of future phases of Urban Downs. It's accessed via 259th with a long driveway shown on the map. The total acreage of the developable parcel, which is the rectangle, and then the long skinny access parcel is 11.2 acres. The designation is low density residential with an urban holding 10 overlay. Per the comprehensive plan, the low density residential designation is implemented upon annexation through either residential low density 4, 6, or 8 zoning. Per the effective 2016 to 2035 comprehensive plan, the zoning upon annexation for this parcel would be residential low density 6 or RLD 6. That is the same zoning designation as the adjacent developments to the north and west. The applicant for this project is the Greeley Farms developer. So their intent upon annexation would be to submit for a planned unit development, residential development on the property, which would be required to go through the necessary permitting processes, starting with the pre-application conference. Procedurally, the requirements have been met for the petition to annex, including signatures representing owners of 100% of the property value. The Clark County Assessor's Office reviewed the application materials as well and issued a certification of sufficiency in April. And finally, council held a public hearing on April 24th, during which no testimony was received. So again, this is the scheduled second ordinance reading and opportunity to take action. If the annexation is adopted this evening, staff will complete the required noticing requirements to our partner agencies. I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Lutt. Yeah, great. Thank you, Ms. Luss. Council, we've seen this a couple of times before. Is there any other questions remaining for you at this point? Councilor Burkle.
Thank you, Mayor. The condition of that long road leading into the development, is it good, bad, or will the developer improve it if it needs improvement?
Excuse me, that'll be assessed during the development application. As a reminder, the urban holding designation is not removed from the property at annexation. So the developer will have to show that urban level infrastructure is available to the site, which presumably will include an analysis of that access from 259th and improvements if necessary.
Thank you.
Councilor Wells.
Yeah, I'm back to the flagpole again. It looks like it intersects to the parcel just in from the corner, so it looks like the road could be widened potentially in the future. It's not, unless it could be a Scribner error, but it's in just a little bit. It's offset to the west from the corner. Just making a comment. You don't need to comment on it.
Yeah, it appears that the flagpole extends to the center line of 259th. So there is a small chunk of half-width right-of-way there that is owned by this individual.
Great. Other questions for Ms. Luss, Council? Okay. If there's no other questions or comments at this point, Ms. Julie, would you please read the ordinance into the record?
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 1451, ordinance of the City of Richfield, Washington, annexing into the corporate limits of the City of Richfield, approximately 11.2 acres identified as the Marks annexation area, and assigning zoning of the annexed area as residential low density 6 with the urban holding 10 overlay.
Great, thank you. Council, at this point, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 1451 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance number 1451 as presented. Any discussion, council? Seeing none, Ms. Julie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Favela?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Wells?
Yes.
Councilmember Burkle?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chipman?
Yes.
Mayor Cole?
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much, council. We do have a couple of public hearings tonight, actually. So the first public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 1452. This is establishing a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit for G Creek Loop. And Mr. Green, this is your wheelhouse, so we'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm here for the last time to talk to you about speed limits, so crowd goes wild. In this case, it's G Creek Loop. G Creek Meadows was built a little over 30 years ago while it was still in unincorporated Clark County. It was built as a private HOA community. In the years since then, the city has annexed the area. And in 2017, after the Homeowners Association effectively dissolved, the members, homeowners, came to the city and asked that the city take over ownership of the street. And in a quitclaim deed that year, that was done. The issue is that made this a public road. We've talked about many times, the city sets speed limits by ordinance and within the code. And in this case, that has not been done since the 2017 quitclaim deed. We did have, because we do have a project that we're looking at doing, redoing the pavement and stormwater facilities in G Creek Loop. We had a neighborhood meeting last month, and so some of the neighbors showed up and we talked about the project, but then we talked about speeding. The question was, well, what is the speed limit? They have a 15-mile-an-hour sign as you enter the neighborhood. But when I went and did some more research, that is the private developer who put this develop together, put that sign 30 years ago. We have, there's no way to enforce it. So at this point, the speed limit defaults to 25 under the city code. In discussing with those who showed up at the neighborhood meeting, we talked about, well, 25 seems a little fast. When I looked at how this was designed and developed, it was less than 25-mile-an-hour design speed that was put into the engineering of this community. By statute, the lowest that the city can set a speed limit on a public road is 20 miles an hour. And that can be done for non-arterial streets, does not require an engineering speed limit study to do that. And so at this point, the proposal is to establish a speed limit of 20 miles an hour for G Creek Loop. Because this is a code amendment, it is an ordinance, and as part of the ordinance, it requires a public hearing. So we're requesting that council hold a public hearing and consider this ordinance for the speed limit of 20 miles an hour. And with that, I'll end my presentation and return it to council.
Oh, that was fast. Okay. Council. Maybe not too fast, though. So, any questions or comments for Mr. Green on this one, council?
Can't do it. So, Mr. Green, we were going to give you some crap and just push back to make.
Why stop now?
But we can't do that to you.
You have 7 weeks, 4 days, and 6 hours to do it, so there.
Don't challenge us.
We are really going to miss you, believe me.
Any real comments or questions from Mr. Green, council? Okay, seeing none, I will now open the public hearing to receive testimony. If you sign up with the city clerk before the meeting, your name will be called and you will receive permission to unmute your microphone or step up to the podium. If you did not sign up in advance but would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on your toolbar. If you're joining by phone, press star 9 to raise your hand and star 6 to mute or unmute. The city clerk will grant you permission to speak. When speaking, please state your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes. There will be no back and forth or discussion between council. And again, just a reminder that public comment is restricted to this public hearing item only. With that, this public hearing is now open. Is there anybody in the room wishing to provide comment for this public hearing? Anybody online, Ms. Julie?
Not seeing anyone online, Mayor.
Okay, just to be extra sure, anybody else in the room? Okay. Seeing none, this public hearing is now closed. All right. See, Ms. Julie, would you please read the ordinance into the record?
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 1452, ordinance of the City of Ridgefield, Washington, amending Ridgefield Municipal Code, Chapter 10.08, speed limits, establishing a posted speed limit of 20 miles per hour for G Creek Loop in the G Creek Meadows neighborhood.
Great. And this is just first reading, but council, I would be open to hearing somebody waive second reading on this one.
Do you want to go? Mr. Mayor, I would like to suggest we waive second reading.
Okay.
And adopt, sorry, I already closed my computer. Oh, ordinance 1452.
As presented?
As presented, yes.
I'll second.
Okay.
Perfect.
It has been moved and seconded to waive second reading and then adopt ordinance number 1452 as presented, establishing a 20 miles per hour speed limit for G Creek Loop. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Julie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Burkle.
Yes.
Councilmember Wells.
Yes.
Councilmember Favela.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Chipman.
Yes.
Mayor Cole.
Aye. And the motion carries. Thank you very much, council. And Mr. Green, you have a new speed limit. We have one more public hearing this evening. This is the public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 1453. This is the amendment to RMC 10.12, parking. It's a new section to prohibit parking in front of or within 10 feet of U.S. mailboxes. Mr. Green, again, over to you.
Okay, so now that I've used up my quota of speed limits presentations, now I'm on to parking, and likely for the last time talk to you about parking. In this case, it is parking in front of or within 10 feet of U.S. Postal Service mailboxes. As you heard when we were talking about Taverner Ridge, there is an issue with parking that blocks access to that community mailbox. That's not the only place. I've probably looked at 3 or 4 concerns or complaints in the last year about vehicles blocking access to mailboxes. As such, we looked into what other jurisdictions have done. Clark County, a couple of years ago, passed an ordinance that's pretty much the same as what we're proposing here, which prohibits parking in front of or within 10 feet of mailboxes. And this ordinance, again, it's an ordinance that amends the code, and changing or an ordinance requires a public hearing. I'll get to that in a minute. In this case, the code would be a new section 10.12.035 about parking in front of mailboxes. Now the question has come up, well, okay, what do we do then if we pass this? How do we get the word out, or how the HOAs get the word out? Looked into other jurisdictions. I actually looked at the city of Hillsborough, which makes available stickers very similar to what you see on screen. And this would be very similar to our sign sticker program that HOAs or whoever has the kind of the ownership of the community mailbox or the mailbox can come in and request one of these stickers, which is a sticker sign in this case, that would just be free of charge, just the same as the sign stickers that we have. This would just be, they'd be able to take this sticker, be a little bit bigger than the sign stickers we have because you have to be able to see it if you're on the street and make sure you can see it so you don't block the mailbox. As a change in code, a new code, it would be enforceable under our code enforcement and very similar to how we enforce other parking regulations at this point. So with that, I'll make this short and sweet again, and in my presentation, return it to council.
All right, thank you, Mr. Green. Council, we will turn it over to you if there's any comments, discussions, or questions to be had. Mr. Wells.
The question I've got, is this no parking in front of the mailbox 24 hours a day?
This would
I
be
think we need to consider.
Yes, 24 hours a day, and it would apply, the only exception for this would be if you're actively dropping off or picking up mail.
Okay.
And that includes mail trucks.
Okay. Then the other question for everybody to know, will the curbs be painted yellow or something so that they know that it's not a parking zone? Red is for the fire department, but something like that. So it'd be a 20-foot section?
We could do that. I'm not a big fan of painting curbs, even though we do have an allowance for that in code. And the reason is, eventually that paint will wear off and will run into our stormwater system, and we'll have to repaint. And that's probably 2 or 3 years as the weather affects that. What we hope is that the signs themselves are visible and will help if there are issues with people saying, well, I parked 9 feet away, or you parked 9 feet away, maybe then we'll look at painting curbs to help delineate.
Okay. Use water-soluble paint.
Well, yes.
Disintegrates, no. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Green at this point? I have just a couple. So I know that this is necessary because you don't want people parking in front of U.S. mailboxes. But especially with respect to downtown, where I think it was last year where we changed the code to allow residents downtown to have mailboxes. Since then, do we know how many have actually added mailboxes versus, continued using their P.O. box?
I would have to say, just very quickly, maybe 4 and since then. As you also may recall, for those who were here adopting the new engineering standards back in October, there is a provision in the engineering standards about requesting mailboxes downtown, as well as not outright prohibiting, but not allowing mailboxes in the core sections on Pioneer and Main, unless it's for accessibility reasons. And we've had one request that originally started on Pioneer, they ended up putting on a side street. So at this point, I'm not aware that there's any active requests. They start with the postal service or the postmaster, and she reaches out to us for location for any issues with sidewalk blockage and things like that. And then they actually issue the approval. And at this point, we've not been contacted in at least 6 months for a new mailbox. So
Okay.
maybe 4 in the last year and a half.
So it doesn't sound like it's a huge issue, but I ask in part because we just went through downtown parking code as well, and to try and add more space downtown. With something like this, I worry that maybe we're inadvertently potentially reversing a policy where, we're reducing the amount of parking that you can have if people start adding more mailboxes downtown. So with that, I know there is an option for, I forget what the actual term is, but the group mailboxes, like the neighborhood mailboxes. And I know that in most neighborhoods, like my neighborhood in Taverner Ridge, that's what we have there. So street parking is not really an issue because there's only certain sections. Is there a way, short of requiring it, I guess, like through code, to encourage neighbors to do that versus having their own individual mailbox?
Yeah, and we actually talked to the postmaster about that. They require community mailboxes in new developments, which is why you see them. They cannot come back and require people to retrofit and bring, with the mailboxes, the single mailboxes they already own. But they encourage, if at all possible, people talking to their neighbors about doing that if we get a group of requests. And that's still in our practice or protocol if we get these requests. We haven't gotten any, but when we do, we expect that we'll encourage people to look at locating them together in one place rather than single mailboxes deployed along a street.
Gotcha. What is the post office sentiment on that? Is that preferable to them, like the community mailboxes versus the individual?
Their preference is to do that because it's one stop for them rather than three.
Yeah, it seemed like it would be. And you were saying that, you said are you talking about the post office cannot require them to go back and do that? Can we as a city do that through code?
We could.
Yeah.
At this point, we had that discussion when we talked about the downtown parking plan, but we haven't moved forward with a proposal yet, but it is something we could look into.
It'd be good just from our vantage point, I think, to just keep a pulse on that to make sure, because again, I don't want to inadvertently limit downtown parking when we're trying to free it up. But, yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Council, any other questions for Mr. Green?
I got a comment.
Go ahead.
So, the comment I have is the 24 hours a day, because a lot of times we have Christmas tree lighting and that in December, and there's very few parking spots. And I guess my comment is maybe we should consider like no parking from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. or something to that effect, so that them spots could be utilized in way late hours.
Certainly, that's something that if council wants to consider, we can. Other jurisdictions have used the 24 hours for two reasons. First of all, it's the simplicity associated with it so that people know not to park in front of mailboxes. The second reason is that the mail is delivered in odd times, is that we don't have mail delivered at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Sometimes it's 10 p.m. that they're actually delivering mail in neighborhoods, that they're delivering packages and mail later in the afternoon and into the evenings. And then the last reason is because part of the reason is for the mail truck, part of it is for the people getting their mail and actually having those spaces available, so when people are trying to drop off and pick up mail, that it isn't all blocked up in front and then they're double parking or trying to figure out another place to actually get their mail. So those are the reasons other jurisdictions have kept it to a 24-hour. It is absolutely something that council can consider if you so choose, though.
Okay, yeah, I think we should consider.
Is downtown, like, is there other neighborhoods in town that have just singular mailboxes versus community mailbox other than downtown?
They're spotty, and tends to be in the ones that we've recently annexed, like along in the G Creek Plateau.
Sure.
We have a singular mailbox that we're working with on our Pioneer Widening project right now, and it keeps moving around because we keep shifting the work zone. But they're kind of few and far between.
Yeah, okay. All right. Is that the end of discussion? Questions? Okay. This is a public hearing, so we will open the public hearing again. If you sign up with the city clerk before the meeting, your name will be called and you will receive permission to unmute your microphone or step up to the podium. If you did not sign up in advance but would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on your toolbar. If you're joining by phone, press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to mute or unmute. The city clerk will grant you permission to speak. And when speaking, once again, please state your name and keep your comments to 3 minutes. There will be no back and forth between the council. This public hearing is now open. Ms. Julie, is there anybody here wishing to give public comment during this hearing? Ms. Julie, is there anybody online?
Not seeing anyone online, Mayor.
Okay. If they're hearing none, this public hearing is now closed. Ms. Julie, would you please read the ordinance into the record?
Thank you. Ordinance number 1453, ordinance of the City of Richland, Washington, amending on-street parking regulations to add a new section, 10.12.035, parking in front of mailboxes.
Great, thank you. And council, once again, this is first reading, but if you're confident in the ordinance as it stands, you may elect to waive second on this one as well.
I move that we waive second reading and approve ordinance number 1453.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to waive second reading and adopt ordinance number 1453 as presented. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Jolie, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Favela?
Yes.
Councilmember Wells?
Yes.
Councilmember Burkle?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Shippen?
Yes.
Mayor Cole?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much, council. All right, now we're going to move on to our second public comment portion of the evening. Anyone wish to address the city council regarding items not subject to a specific public hearing may come forward at this time to the podium or use the raise hand feature located on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. For controls over the phone, star 9. For raise hand and star 6 to mute or unmute, please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
My name is Michael Jennings. Thank you again for your management of Ridgefield.
Thank you, Michael. Anybody else wishing to give public comment?
Yeah, so I'm Carmen DeLeon. I go by Mello. Anyways, I'm going to finish what I was saying before. So I don't know if you've ever been to Salem State Fair. I love it. My favorite thing, I call it the people mover. So you sit down and it takes you about 30 feet in the air. You cross the fairgrounds, and if you want to, you get off for $3 or you pay the $6 and you go all the way around back. It's beautiful. You're looking down at the fair, you decide, oh, I want to go there, there, and there. And like I said, $3, $6. Same thing, Space Needle, what are they selling you? A view. We got a better view. Okay, so 4th of July, I can't even imagine what it would look like to see all the fireworks going off, riding in a canopy, floating in the air like a bird. That would be sold out. And I'm just saying, to keep it feasible all year long, it would be all the school districts could have an educational field trip to the tree and come and climb it, make it a competition. If you've ever had a kid in competitions, you know one good event a year can pay for the whole year. So if you want to come to our event and all the schools get a discount, and as you know, we have an obesity problem, so it would be great to have kids in shape and climb our tree. You get a discount across the river if you win, and every year, you get to win a trophy shaped like a tree. I'm just saying, it's another way to move people across the state without damaging our beautiful land and going upward. And you're laughing at I-5, looking at all those people trapped on the bridge, on the freeway while you're flying overhead. Cheap if you're a local, full price for the tourists, in direct competition with the Space Needle, which is not even pointed, it's round. At least we could have a tree that's actually a tree shaped like a tree that you can fly out like a bird and cross the river. Like I said, where else are you going to get that? And all year long, you can finance that with the local community, encouraging, physical health. And let me see, I can't tell what time. Well, I just want to say the same thing the guy said, because I'm looking at these people, and you guys got not even a quarter of the population that we got in Vancouver, and it's sickening because nobody shows up, nobody cares, and the place is going to pot. They had 900 phone calls to the police over homelessness and drug use in Vancouver, and they're patting themselves on the back. Really? You have the police babysitting for you, and you did a great job. So Vancouver's a mess. So I got to hand it to you. I respect this community. I love what you've done. Like I said, my father moved to this part of the country because of the homely atmosphere. It's wonderful. They killed it in Vancouver. I hope you don't do that here. Because really, you got a great thing going, and instead of destroying the land, make money off it. That's why I'm saying bring the tourist dollars in. It's possible. We got Olympic level sea in Vancouver Lake. It's a tourist attraction.
Thank you, Mello.
It's money.
We appreciate you. Thanks for visiting us tonight. We appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you next time, man.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to give public comment this evening? Miss Julie, anybody online?
Not seeing no one online, Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and move on to council and staff reports. Anybody want to go first? Councilor Favela, I knew I could count on you.
You can always count on me, Mayor. All right, in the last couple weeks, I attended a town hall in Battleground with the 18th and 20th district representatives there. It was a great turnout. We We had first Saturday activities, our council retreat. We call it a retreat, but really it is a fancy name for sitting in the same room for hours and hours and hours and hours together. So it's a retreat. We had our briefing with city manager, and I attended a CAB meeting, and the fire commission meeting was canceled. That's all I got.
All right. Counselor Davis.
Sure. All right. Thank you. So, week before last on Saturday, I was down at Davis Park. No relation to whoever that was named after, I guess. And it was for the YMCA Healthy Kids Day. It was really well attended. It was just great to see the community out. And I was working the station that gave away bike helmets. And we had, Chief, over 100 bike helmets donated? Yes, correct. And I want to say most of them got distributed. And so we considered that a success, so hopefully kids will be out there enjoying the outside in a safe manner. I too attended First Saturday. It was great, 10th anniversary. As always, Ms. Nutton-Harris and her crew does a fantastic job with that. And then, yes, we had our retreat, which was more of like a working meeting, but there was some food, so that was nice. So, yeah, anyway, that's what I got.
Great, thank you. I think that you should actually, because of the resemblance in name, you should have to research the namesake of Davis Park and report back to us. I think that's only fair. Okay. Counselor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a little shout out real quick. I came straight from my salon. We're hosting the Pink Lemonade Project, which I know is near and dear to a lot of the people in the city and this council. And we just hosted 25 women that are currently going through chemo and are just outside of that and making them feel beautiful. And I know that that's something that I feel really proud of. And I just think all of us do these kind of things in our real life. And I think it's cool to share that with everybody. So thank you for letting me do so. I also went to retreat, which was my first one. Super interesting, learning experience, cool to watch how it all happens and how the sauce is made a little bit. And I'm very grateful to everyone for, helping me along here. I was able to go to the first Saturday, the artwork reveal section. It was my salon's 10-year anniversary, so I wasn't able to do as many activities as I hoped for that day, but got to see the artwork reveal, which I thought was beautiful, and I can't wait to see the other overpass and how that looks. I went to the Ridgefield Chamber monthly luncheon. The focus was on AI and social media, so I thought that was a cool takeaway. And I'm looking forward to going to the Coffee Connection tomorrow morning. And that's kind of what I'm doing.
Great, thank you, Counselor. Counselor Burkle.
Thank you. I won't repeat everything that's been stated, as I've done the same, but I would like to comment on our Ridgefield High School Knowledge Bowl team. Are you familiar with them? Mm-hmm. They once again won the state championship, and I'd like to point out they had the highest tournament score ever. Oh, wow. So I think it's admirable for our high school and our kids. Also, I do believe they're having a fundraiser, as they will be going once again to the national competition. So if you see them looking for funds, maybe you could help out with $1 or $2. Thank you.
Thank you. You know that they have, it's a pretty robust program. They have, it's like a JV and a varsity version as well. There's a bunch of kids that are involved in it. Pretty cool. Okay, Counselor Wells.
Well, I should repeat just what Mr. Burkle said. I did go to First Saturday for the dedication of the Birds on the Rail overpass, and then we had to zip off to go to Battleground to the legislative meeting that they had there. 3 of us council members were there. Briefing on the 7th, and 4th and 5th was our retreat, and it was enjoyable. It was beautiful weather, beautiful spot to have.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
So the highlight of my last couple of weeks was a meeting for 100 Women Who Care. where Neighbors Helping Neighbors had won the money 3 months ago, and so we found out that it had totaled $17,200, which is a very large amount of money for Neighbors Helping Neighbors, since we generally only have about $20,000 in our bank account. So that was a fabulous thing. We were very, very pleased. I too, of course, was at the retreat. I did get to come to First Saturday for just a few minutes, but, and then tomorrow morning we all have a breakfast meeting. I think most of us are going to legislative review to hear what the legislators did this year. So that's going to be an interesting morning to listen to them talk. So, and then a meeting with YWCA at lunch, where they're having a celebration for the YWCA in Vancouver. So it all continues. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to just highlight a couple of things. One that was already mentioned, but I just want to give a couple of acknowledgements with it too. So the overpass artwork that you see going down to the waterfront right now, we did a reveal for that during Spring Festival on Saturday. If you haven't seen it, and especially up close, it's really cool just how it all came together. This was a long time coming. I think this is something that when I first got on council that we were discussing, and here we are finally getting to it. And the one over the I-5 overpass will be getting installed, I think, next week? Is it tail end of next week or week after?
All right, you just stole the item I was going to talk about.
Oh, okay. No, I'll let you get to it. Here's what I was going to talk about. Yeah.
So we start, they start Tuesday night, and it'll be probably through the rest of next week and then into the following week to get all of them installed over I-5.
Okay, great, yeah. And you know, that doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of effort to do it. And you know, the idea was kind of conceived a few years ago by former Mayor Onslow. If you've ever been out to the Dalles, you can see like I think it's like the salmon or the fish kind of going over the overpass right there. Pretty cool. This is the only one in the state of Washington now. So we're the first one with overpass artwork in the state of Washington. And it started with a $20,000 grant from the Department of Transportation to do design for it. We later got a $50,000 grant from the Cowlitz Tribe, which is a big deal. They helped us get the funds for the artwork, and we worked with an artist out of California, and he actually came up to help install it and oversee it, and he spoke at the event last weekend. It's pretty cool. And then WashDOT came back again. Am I doing this right? It's $328,000 from WashDOT?
From the state.
From the state, I'm sorry,
State Capitol.
yes. Yeah, so a capital grant for that to get the whole thing done. And so, you know, we are really grateful for our partners in helping making things like that happen. That's a placemaking part. We want to be able to connect people who enter the city, especially as they have these big new businesses come online. We want to be able to draw them downtown and bring them to the heart of our city. So it's pretty cool. On a more policy-related note, we've been working on this comprehensive plan update for 2 years here in Ridgefield. The county has been doing their part as well. And as a part of that, we have identified some areas where we would like to have urban area expansion. And it's been a bit of a battle just convincing the county council to go along with this. What's required of that is there are ag lands that we have identified that we could build homes, bring new jobs to the area, and these are ag lands that I think are specifically not productive agriculture. I think the one north of Costco that we're looking at has not been farmed in 30 plus years, since at least, and it's got an industrial reserve overlay on it, and so it's not going to be farmed. There's another one that's kind of a little anomaly over by Carty Road, and that's a site for potential. It's a candidate for a senior living facility or a fire station on the west side, which is very badly needed. And so I think things kind of came to a culmination yesterday during county council's council time, and the city manager and I went and attended that after 2.5 hours of public comment. I think there's over 50 people at 3 minutes each. Like when you have to take a break in the middle of public comment, that's a lot, and a lot of the same comments. But we were asking for a couple things. A few weeks ago, I sent a letter to the county council. It was a joint letter signed by Mayor Strobin and LaCenter, just asking the county council to honor our request to hold a joint work session to collaborate with us on our request and our comprehensive plan to make sure that we're all aligned on where we're going and the vision that we have for our city. That's a big deal. We spent a lot of time looking, polling residents, doing workshops, gathering input from our community to form a vision for what this community should look like over the next 20 years. And it was in jeopardy for a bit because the county did not want us to see, there were some members of the county council and their staff who did not want to see us expand our urban areas, and so it would have been really unfortunate. It would have caused redevelopment of our existing neighborhoods, which would have been more density. We would have been had to jam 2,000 people into existing neighborhoods. It would have cost us 1,000 jobs. In the end, I'm glad to hear that the county council did the right thing. They are going to pursue the resource land study that's required. They set a deadline for that at the end of September. Their planning director came back and with a timeline that said that they can deliver a EIS, environmental impact statement, by mid-November, and then the county can finish up its entire comp plan update by mid-January is what it sounds like. So there was this narrative being spun about, it's going to take an extra year to get it all done and they don't have time to do it, but, they'll go over, but maybe just by a couple of weeks. And so what we'll get out of it is a resource land study that's essential to evaluate those areas that we're asking for. And we have a lot more work to do, but I think a big hurdle was crossed yesterday. So really grateful for that. And it sounds like the county council is amenable to a work session as well. So good stuff. Good win yesterday for us after enduring a lot of waiting around listening to a lot of public comment. That's all I have, Mr. Stewart. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council and the community. Just to follow up briefly on that, the only other thing I would state is thank you to all of our council and to the mayor for your work on this, because without your work, we would not have been successful yesterday. And it was definitely a team effort from our mayor pro tem, from our mayor, from our council, who were all working on these issues to help share information with the county council, with county staff, with constituents on what is real and what is not. And so great work on all of that. And the work session that would be held between the county council and city councils, not only ours in La Center, but open to city councils from other areas around Clark County as well, we'll be working on an agenda. The city managers and the county manager were tasked by the county council to come up with an agenda that then will be submitted to the county council for their approval, with the work session likely in the next 2 months is what they're looking at for a time frame on that. So that's one piece. On the news on the front about grants, and you spoke about the grants that we received, including a capital allocation from the legislature for the overpass pedestrian screen some years ago. We most recently found out that in the 2025 legislative session in Washington State, we were successful in receiving $1.5 million for slope stabilization on the Pioneer Street corridor through the curves coming down the hill. An incredibly important project that we have prioritized and this council has prioritized, knowing that we have had 4 slides in the past 20 years and that it is likely to occur again without significant action. That action will cost somewhere between $3 and $4 million. This $1.5 million goes a long way toward making sure that this gets done. So great news on that. $1.5 million in the state scope may not seem like much, but for community project grants, which is what this is, $1.5 million is one of the highest ones that I've seen, and certainly one of the largest grants that was given this year as part of the community projects piece. So great work by our community to make the need known to our legislators, and many thanks to our legislators from the 20th Legislative District for getting it done. Only other thing I wanted to make note of, and I wasn't sure the mayor would make note or not, and so I will, is that the mayor and myself went to Eugene last Monday. We went to Eugene and toured the Eugene YMCA. That was at the request and invitation of the interim CEO of the Columbia-Willamette region for the YMCA to go look at a facility that opened in December of 2023. It was a $47 million facility that they raised $30 million from donors, an additional $17 million from state and federal resources. So I think a lot of it was for them to be able to show us and our community what they could do when they put their minds to it, and some of the details about that facility and how we might learn from it. There are a lot of complexities. There are a lot of questions, I think, that were unanswered and that will need to be answered as part of the process moving forward. But frankly, there were a lot of good questions that we may not have known otherwise to even ask. And so I think that was a good point of that trip, was actually getting to know what are the questions we should be asking about how to make something successful for ourselves here in Ridgefield. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, Commissioner Stewart, council? No. I will say that it was really cool to be able to see what a community center / YMCA could look like, so, here in Ridgefield. Yeah.
Mayor, just sorry, turn it back over to you. The next study session we have is the 15th. The one after that, what is the next one? June, they're looking at me like, why are you asking me?
29th.
Is it the 15th?
Hold on, sorry.
June 5th.
All right, so on June 5th, sneak preview, on June 5th, at our study session, we will be bringing to the City Council the updated designs, including internal and external site and building designs for the Community and Recreation Center for your review and input as we are finalizing the design for both site and buildings and moving forward into the permitting processes. So sneak preview coming June 5.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to that. It's like a big reveal. Okay, Mr. Green.
All right, first, following up on the birds, I would encourage you to look at the ones over the railroad overpass at sunset. Very interesting backdrop. I would encourage you then to go spend your Main Street moolah on dinner and then come back at dark, because if you go back on the bridge, there's a street light that shines to the south side, and it looks, because the bridge is black, the backdrop is black, it looks like the birds are flying with that lighting. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing is, you may have noticed that our hawk signal is active. It's in test mode. We're still tweaking the push buttons a bit, but we made it operational this week. The rectangular rapid flashing beacons, or those yellow flashing things that were there, have now been moved down to Sanderling, so they're active. So we now have 2 active enhanced crosswalks. So encourage you to go check it out.
Cool, thank you. All right. Go ahead, yeah.
Mr. Green, I do have a question about the birds that will go on I-5. It got me thinking, the comparison with the Dalles. Are our birds going to be on the outside so the freeway sees them, or are they going to be on the inside so that you could see them from Pioneer, or both?
We're going to be better than the Dells. They're going to be on both sides.
Okay, okay,
And
okay.
while
There
the-
are 60 individual birds
Yes.
that are going to go
Wow,
on that
okay, so both
overpass right there.
sides.
Yeah.
Excellent, fantastic. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Burkle.
Mr. Green, just a comment on the hawk signals at the high school. I hope there's going to be a learning session with the students. What I encountered the other day was a student pressing the button and immediately entering the roadway with the light still being yellow. It takes, I'm not sure how long for the light to go from yellow to red, but that could be a situation where in the past, they hit the button and they immediately go across. Now it's different, and maybe somebody should consider talking to the kids.
I think
about
so.
that.
Councilor Favela, do you have anything to add to that?
I will be doing a video to show the community how the hawk crossing signal works.
Terrific,
So-
thank you.
I just gotta get my hair right. It'll be good.
Okay, Mr. Thamer, we'll go to you.
Okay, I have a couple of updates. Our operations crew has been working on 2 parking lots. The first one is downtown at the old police station. We were able to add 25 spots to downtown.
Amen. Yep, great.
And the second parking lot is we were able to add 6 ADA parking spaces to the Rourke parking lot.
Oh, terrific.
So, and my last update is, you might remember a couple of months ago, I announced that we had gone to the AWWA local conference and we won Best Tasting Water, and that we were qualified to go to regionals. Our utility supervisor, Steve Sampson, represented Ridgefield for the first time ever at the regional conference. And although we didn't win, it was great to have Ridgefield represented for the first time ever.
Congrats. I gotta ask though, like, what does that entail? Like, are you guys up there like on a stage, like, you know, doing like pinky up, tasting water, or what is it? What's happening?
I have a video I'll show you after.
Okay. I love it. I'm sincerely interested in seeing it. Yeah.
We'll bring that back to council. We can show you the video as during staff reports. We can actually show it to you.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Mr. Johnson.
I do not have any other updates tonight, but we'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Okay, great. Ms. Luss, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything else either this evening.
Okay, great. And no questions? Okay. And Ms. Parker, are you online this evening?
I am online, but I don't have anything to report this evening. Just happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. And once again, looks like no questions for you either. Thank you, you're off the hook. Okay. And lastly, Chief Doriot.
I don't have anything, Mr. Mayor. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, seeing none. Okay, this meeting is now adjourned.
Look at this.